Well, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Joyce Feustel to the group. She will be sharing tips on how to make changes to your LinkedIn profile to better showcase yourself as job seekers. Plus, she will share ideas for connecting and engaging with others on LinkedIn. Through her business, Boomer's Social Media Tutor, Joyce Feustel provides group training and one on one tutoring in person or via Zoom to help business owners and job seekers, especially those 55 and older, to be more effective and productive while using LinkedIn and Facebook. She created the business in 2010 when she was 61 years old and went full time with it in 2013 when she retired from a 17-year career in sales. Welcome, Joyce.
Yay. Okay, I'd like to get can we remove, I keep seeing the
Yes, I am going to
BoulderNet.
stop sharing my screen
Okay,
and
you're gonna stop sharing the screen.
we will you can take it away and I'll go ahead and also post your oh, you
No,
reposted
I
it.
just, yeah, I
Wonderful. We're
reposted
all
it, no worries. I got that for
excellent.
Don, or Jerry, I
Wonderful.
mean, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I just wanted to see all your faces, oh, except for Mara, I see your cat. All right, so Joyce Feustel here, and it is Feustel, rhymes with Joyce. I should have coached you on that. It's okay. I
Thank
like,
you. Sorry,
yeah, you know,
my
50
apologies.
years, 50 years with that guy. I've been spelling it F as in Frank, EUST, et cetera. At any rate, I'm happy to be here. Actually lived in Madison. Kathy, I know you from somewhere. What's your last name? No, maybe I think Toastmasters.
Yes, Toastmasters, and it's Burgert, and I do the same thing with my last name. It's B-U-E.
Ah, there you go. Well, I actually lived in Madison, Wisconsin for almost 30 years. So I feel like I just like really relate to this Boulder crowd because it's very similar. There are some differences, but it has a similar vibe. And you know, went to the University of Wisconsin there. My brother graduated actually from CU Boulder a long time ago. Well, today we're going to focus on LinkedIn and mainly on your profile because you can network your heart away, but if you have a crappy profile, I'll be very blunt, this is the problem. And in fact, if you look yourself up on LinkedIn, and I mean on LinkedIn, on Google, speaking of which, Mark, you will often see your LinkedIn profile may very well come up high, very high. And you're like, oh my God, I look terrible in that dress. You know, so you got to think about your profile. I know it's not like a lecture here. And so let's just pop right in. And I'm going to skip over some of the preliminary stuff. So in the interest of time. Okay, where's my share? Sorry for a minute. Whoops. Okay, off we go into LinkedIn land. So I'm going to go over some navigational things, very basic stuff. When you're in LinkedIn, you can get to your profile in one of two ways. This is the way to always remember so you don't get lost. You can go here to the me, and then there's a little arrow, and you can do different things from this point, but we're of course going to the profile. Kind of a shortcut way is just, of course, just click over here. But let's do it the kind of way you can do it from anywhere on LinkedIn. Then click again to get rid of the annoying little drop down. Here in this background, I would say you can have a background, say like, you know, like Trent does in his virtual background. Actually, you know who's got a really beautiful background is the guy that just came on toward the end. This guy, Jerry. I really like his background, and hopefully, can you see it still, folks? Can you just give me a shot? Do you see his picture, Jerry's profile? Because see, first, also notice he does Jerome, Jerry, McQueen, but this is gorgeous, right? This is very Colorado-esque. So I think it's a very safe thing. I mean, I'm not saying you don't, I want you to have your point of view. I'm not saying don't be environmentally conscious, but on LinkedIn, I think unless that's really only your target market, I think I would be a little bit neutral, maybe as a word to some extent on a background. So
yeah,
I'll go back. Yeah.
This is Jerry. That photo I took after a Longs Peak Net meeting 2.5 years ago, just from the church parking lot, you know, when we were meeting up at Life Bridge Church in Longmont.
Really?
So on my
wow.
iPhone. It's not hard to do.
Yeah, Jerry, if you want to look at a good profile, look at Jerry's. Okay, so there we go. Now, and speaking of what, this picture should look relatively like you. Now, I think it's because I have really excellent skincare. I'll brag just for a minute. I can use a picture from 2014, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. You know, one of these days I'll replace it, but I'm kind of partial to this picture. Maybe sometime later in my 70s, I'll change it out. But that is important. Now, let's go down here to the headline. I've been thinking a lot about this when people are talking about pivoting, especially in Mark Talk. So in this section, your headline, you can use words of careers you are seeking if you feel you can really do that work. I mean, this is so tricky. This isn't like saying you had a job in it, which is different. So you have up to 220 characters even. You don't have to use them all. But this is a robust area. I mean, use it, make it more robust than it may be right now. And Sean Clausen, don't just say springtime. That's cute, but I'm going to sound kind of like a little bit of an edgy English teacher here, or your mom giving you some advice. And I just think that would be more interesting if you would say computer engineering, IT support. Use search words that are found in job announcements, job descriptions, so they will match up.
Can you talk at 11 a.m.?
What's that? I missed something.
Oh, I think Mark was, ignore that.
Okay, all right. So then also see this little deal here, this little up and down line, it's a good separator. And that's a place where you can, the way you do it is you hit your shift key and then the backward slash key. The backward slash, I'll try it. By the way, I meant to say at the very outset, I will help any of you for free for up to 30 minutes. And there's a link to my Calendly complimentary LinkedIn assessment in that PDF that's in the chat. So go look for it there. And so because I know our time is limited because we got a little bit late start, that's okay. So that's the headline. So if you're going to go over and change it, here's another little thing I was thinking about. Jerry, he has Lafayette, or somebody has Lafayette. Who lives in Lafayette? It's Don, right? So what I'm going to suggest here, this is where you go and change that headline, right? But go down here and consider, although I know Boulder is statistical metropolitan district. So you could see, I have Denver Metro, even though I live in Lakewood. I think I would at least change it to Boulder if you lived in Louisville, Lafayette, any of those, just a suggestion. Okay, here, contact info. Make sure that this email, which by the way is only seen by your connections, matches up with your with your resume, with your resume email. So say you've created a separate Gmail, which is not a bad idea, just for job search, and you have that on your resume. That would be the email that should display here on LinkedIn. Also, this is a really cool thing to be able to do. I would consider customizing your LinkedIn, the URL. I'm trying to find a good example. Maybe we'll say Carol Satterley. So she could go over here to this pencil, and this is a hyperlink, so it's clickable. So you click here, and then that takes us to this internal editing screen. So see where I have Joyce Feustel, social media trainer. You could put your first name, your last name, like Kathy, you would have Kathy Berger, finance, whatever your top, you have to kind of find out the proper term. But you have 100 characters, used to be 30 back in the day. So you have some room to maneuver there. And while you're in that screen, double, triple check, watch this, that this circle here is by public. I see a lot, or occasionally maybe is a better word, where people have limited their visibility only to those people up to 3 degrees away. Well, there could be somebody even further away, like was talked about earlier. My daughter, Jane, she's 38 years old on the 14th. She's never had a LinkedIn account. She's worked in nonprofits. She doesn't really feel need for it. She looks people up on LinkedIn. And see, all these sections should be green. So I just want to stress that. Okay, so now we're back to this section. And for job seekers, typically, there's not too much to put in, although you could even put the BoulderNet website in here. You could, or who was on that board? Ann, you're on a board of a nonprofit. You could put that website in here. You can put up to 3 websites. You run a meetup group. You have a side hustle that's not too like off the beaten path of what you're looking for. You could put your link to your Facebook page, but I would be judicious, I guess is the word. So now I'm going to do open to, and there you have your finding a job. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but let's just think about it. You're going to put your 5 job titles in, or maybe you've all done this already. 5 job titles have to be in LinkedIn's little dictionary, so to speak. Then you can choose on-site, hybrid, remote. Like say, Mary, if you only want remote, then just click remote, right? Then you pick, are you immediately? Do you want a job like tomorrow? Or are you just kind of looking? And then who was talking about contract? I think it was Jerry. So you could have contract, full-time, just what you choose. Now we get down to the really big question of what I call the Miss America sash. Do I want to say open to work and look desperate like some people feel looks? No, well, maybe it does. And not to me, if I was looking for a job, trust me, I'd want God and everybody to know. So I would click that. This one here, I'll recruit all LinkedIn members, but I know not everybody wants that. So this is a good point to stop and see if there's any really quick questions of what I'm going through at sort of this blazing pace. Anybody have anything they're wondering about?
Well, let me ask the question of the group. Do we really need the blazing pace? I mean, if the meeting ran long, is that going to create a problem for anyone?
I can slow down. It's been done.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. That's the point of my question, right? I know that I'm assuming you're doing the blazing pace to, get it into our normal meeting length. But if the meeting ran longer, giving you more, I ran long with the intros, right? Because I think the networking through
They
the
were
intros-
awesome. That was a really good
Yeah,
executive
but I think that
decision.
that's value of the networking, right? So I ran long, which bit into your time, and so you're trying to catch up. So if the whole meeting ran long, is that going to create a problem for any of the attendees?
And not for me either. I allowed some wiggle room. Thank
Okay,
you
so
for,
then,
sure, so then don't, and actually what I really like is if questions come right after this section, I talk about it and not wait to the end where you're probably going to forget it anyway.
yeah, so then therefore, Joyce, take, to go
Sure,
at whatever
thank you
pace
for,
think
then
is
I'll take
effective.
a few more breaths here, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to stop and talk for a minute about paid LinkedIn, because somebody mentioned she had that. When you have paid LinkedIn, you go to your profile views and you can see, by the way, everybody look me up, it'll feed my ego, even if you already know me. So you can tell when I've had speaking engagements, see right there, right? You see this if you have a paid account. So I can go all the way down here and see who's looked at me in the last 90 days. Isn't that interesting? So that to me is worth $30 if I was a job seeker for a month, because then, oh, interesting, that hiring authority looked at my LinkedIn. Wow, how about that? And who is that dude anyway? And notice sometimes people look at you when they're hiding. We can talk about that briefly, but that's just, I want to make sure to show that to you. And you can filter this too. They've made some changes here lately. And then that's where they looked you up by name, okay? Now, let's say this is interesting to find out if did my search terms did my keywords in my profile put me into a search. So people found me looking for social media specialist, check, trainer, check, coach, check, consultant, check. Oh man, these all are things that I have in my profile and that I do. I think I'm doing pretty well here in terms of how I'm showing up in searches. And then these are where these people work. And this is, some of them, and then what they do for a living. Very interesting. So they've changed this setup a little bit. And I think analytics is so helpful and important. And what you want to see are trends in terms of the direction you're going.
Where was that at, Joyce?
Okay, where it is, Carol, it's right below open to. It's toward the top. So you see the blue open to?
Yep.
It's only you see that. Don't worry. Other people don't. Ugh, it'd be bad.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about resources briefly. Creator mode for all you guys, I just don't see a point in it. I just think that the biggest reason I don't use it, though I do a lot of content creation on LinkedIn, is that if any of you would go to me and say a presentation like this that aren't already connected, and you say, oh, Joyce, she seems pretty cool. I'm, obviously dragging myself up here, whatever, but you want to connect with me. What you're going to see, you would see follow, because that's how they set up creator mode. These are people like whatever, people that want to be followed, and they do have more search terms under them. But I like to have it say connect, because otherwise they have to figure out to click on more, and then there's a drop down that says connect. So it takes a couple more clicks. So anyway, because you guys want to be networking up the yin yang has already been established over and over. Now, the about section. The about section, you have 2,600 characters. Don't get too carried away if your readers, if it are, people they're going to be too much information. However, you can still think about ways to use it. You can use a resume voice, kind of the declarative voice, to get all fancy dancy and show I was an English major and I know these terms. But I personally like the IU first person voice. It tells a story. So we think of someone like, oh, who's a good example? Oh, Anne, we'll use Anne. I have a knack for helping nonprofits make their systems so streamlined. It saves them time and helps them bring in more money to serve the people they serve, almost like a mission statement. And so you talk about that, and then you say, and then go into a little more specifics about what you do and how you got there. Did you, and that's why I serve in nonprofits. When I grew up, my family were all supporting my community. So it's you in the context of where you want to land and who you want to serve. So think of it like that. Don't start necessarily with an email like me. I'm very bold and like, hey, use my services, all that. So this is different than what you would do. But do talk about how you can be of service. And here's the thing, because several people on this call are over, I'll say roughly the age of 50. So then, like, oh my gosh, I really was rocking it back in the 90s. Well, I don't want to go that far back because they say, 10 to 15 years, blah, blah, blah. What you could do, folks, is here, somewhere in here, about halfway down, whatever, put career accomplishments or even career and community accomplishments. So you could put things in there like in a little bulleted list, like you create the whole thing in your Word document. Then you put in those to show them as part of the fabric of your life, right? And that way you don't have to be worried that they're so far back in time, like, how am I going to bring them up? Well, you can do it there. And another idea is to add a testimonial too. See these testimonials? You don't even have to be on LinkedIn with these people. Maybe the person who gave you the best testimony in the world is like retired now, but it's a character reference, right? Think of that. So ask them if it's okay for you to use their character or piece of it, just a little nugget of it for your about section. Do you have questions about the about section? I hope this is making sense, but you want to be interested. Yeah.
Oh, I have a question. Just wondering about length, and it seems like it's okay to be lengthy there. Would you agree, Joyce?
Well, I think it kind of depends on who your readership is, but I think in general, I lean toward longer, but that's me. I write long emails, so, I'm not saying you should, but do your own style. If you tend to be very, concise anyway, I'm looking at the IT guy, maybe, you're just going to be like, boom, 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 very boom. So I think it depends on, how you just generally engage with the world. So I think the most important thing is to distinguish yourself, differentiate yourself. How do you sound so interesting? They'd love to go out and have a glass of wine with you if they could, or I often say, or a beer, because I'm from Wisconsin, but have it be something that intrigues them to want to reach out to you. Now, featured, I could spend all day on featured. And I'd have to think about what would be the best for you to feature. If you're posting on LinkedIn, I could go into this more in the 30-minute freebie sessions, then those are great things to put up. Like, I'll show you how to do a featured and where you go if you haven't featured. This is me and the cute husband from 50 years ago when we were young. So look at that. People who are older who remember the 70s like they lived it, right? There's a few here. Just that classic 70s picture, right? And there's the paisley dress. Carol's nodding her head. Yeah. And I look like I'm 12, but I'm really 23. So at any rate, so it was just a delightful little post to put up about saying yes. But at any rate, so if you don't have featured, you go up here to add profile section. And then this is all in the PDF. And then you go over here and then you click on add featured. So the steps are there, I promise. But let's say I'm going to add a new section to my featured. So I'll go to this post that's actually doing pretty well of me and my minister. Well, I should have to say no, my former minister. I miss her already. So now I put that one up. So if we exit out of featured, that's actually going to bump the one of me and the husband, but that's okay. And I can move these around. I could change it. I could bring that one back in. I could put this back in the middle, like here, and I could pull this one down. So, but I think featured, if you can think of things to write about, even your hobbies or your organizations that you support, then it gives a splash of color to, let's face it, a very boring, LinkedIn is boring. I mean, just on the face of it, it's hard to make it interesting. So here it's an idea. So we'll just move on and keep talking. Now we're to kind of the heart of everything, which is your experience section. This is obviously the closest to the resume. And here you don't have to say I kept with that. You can say, excel at, use your resume voice. Just heck, you can just copy and paste for the most part from your resume right over here to experience. Now, I'm going to say folks like Trent and Don, who are just, and Hari, anybody here who is leading this group, I say add it to your experience section. Do that, because then it is going to be good PR for the group that it exists, right? And it'll show up if that's your main thing. Like somebody here, I think, is it Don or Trent? Is it one of you that doesn't have, like, you're not working at a job? Maybe that's you, Trent. And so then it shows up, it'll show up right here. See, right like that. So I encourage you to do that. So here, like I do that for this. See, I'm a board member of this group. See how it shows up? And if you have a LinkedIn page, I can't remember if you do. Do you know if you have one? A company page for the group? Yeah, then
Yes,
the little
yes.
logo will show up there, which
Yes.
is good. Yes, go ahead.
We do have a LinkedIn group.
Group or page or both?
I'm not sure the difference.
Well, a group is where you hang out together and you can chat and you can interact, share examples. Hey, I got a job here, or check out this place. A page is like, well, I'll show you my page. A page is more like a website, in that you can post to the page. You have the name here, and it's public by its very nature. This is a page. See how the format is looking? So you say, it won't look like that. Let me show you how view as member. It would look like this to you if you were looking at my page. Does that make sense, then, Don?
I put the link in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you mind taking a peek at it?
Yeah. Well, what I can just do is type in Boulder, or the link to the, let me go find
I
that.
if you just search on BoulderNet, right?
That's what I was going to say. That would be.
Should come up. We had
Boulder.
trouble in the past.
Oh, I have to search for, well, here's a good, so I search for companies, there's nothing. If I search for groups, there it is. It's a group, 554 members. It's a group done.
Okay.
But you might consider, I don't know, pros and cons, and to having it as a page, that gives a little more visibility and kind of like cachet to the leaders, if nothing else.
Oh, thank
Because
you.
because say somebody's looking for work and they're helping with this group while they're doing it, they're like, oh, they're contributing to the community. They're helping out. I mean, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the experience section. So that's kind of that standard. We mentioned that earlier, 10 to 15 years. Make sure, here's a little one. Say you were down here in the Denver area and you worked in Englewood. Okay, well, does everybody know where Englewood? Well, if you're local, you probably do. But if you're a new recruiter, you just moved to the Denver area, you don't know where all these different little suburbs are. So then I would always say Denver metro area. Denver, and even if you work for a company or someplace else, but you go to sleep at night in Boulder, Denver metro area, put that down as Denver metro area. And sometimes you can have things here for this media. A lot of times that wouldn't quite apply to a job search. But what these are you can go in here. Let me go to my pencil. And you can add a PowerPoint. You can add a video. We can talk about that more when we meet up. But what is something else I was thinking of with this? Okay, but this is the other thing. Your title of your job, your position, you have 100 characters. So if you were doing, say, customer service like Mary, but you were doing other things too that you kind of want to do more of, you can use that same little separator thing and add to it. See how I have this longer thing? So I think you can expand upon the actual name of your past positions. And LinkedIn, I think you have license to do that. I think that's fine. I know the other thing I want to tell you. Then as you get testimony, or maybe your very best, recommendations, you're like, well, they're kind of down lower than the higher ones. You can take your favorite or your current favorite testimonials and see here, this is where I have them here for that position. So you can have, I like to have in the about section, maybe for you guys, especially more like character references, kind of the whole person of you. And then ones that are more job specific would be here for any of the jobs you've held. You have 2,000 characters, folks. Did you know that? 2,000 characters for each of these. Don't get carried away like I am a little bit here. but you can include testimonials in there. So any questions about the experience section?
This would be helpful, I guess, if you, for example, are not able to request a recommendation from somebody, right?
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
Again,
it.
they're not on LinkedIn, they're retired. They just can't figure out how to do the recommendation. There's a little functionality there. Yes, exactly. Education. Two things here. Oh, and by the way, you can move. Say you're working at Starbucks right now. Well, let's take Anne. Anne is working at Starbucks. We'll just make up a little story here. And she's on that board of that nonprofit, and she's looking for a consulting position. If I were Anne, I would have her nonprofit board position listed first, then the Starbucks. I mean, she can if she wants. She doesn't have to list it. And then her previous positions, right? And if you have a company where you do all different gigs under your company name, and then you, rather than, well, unless you were W-2'd by them, I generally think you're better off just listing those that you can, I guess, publicly list as companies where you did the contracting work. Okay, but back down to education. So education is where you where are we here? Oh, I know, sorry. I'm still getting used to this. Earlier this year, LinkedIn restructured the navigation of the profile, so I'm still sometimes get goofed up. If you went to school anywhere, like I went to the University of Phoenix for a year, you can list that. Now, I'm not nearly as proud of that experience as I am of my degrees from the University of Wisconsin, Madison. So they go, but if there was one, if I felt like this one was more important, which it is, because it's a business degree, then the others, see, again, I can move these guys, I can move them around, not there. I can move them around at the top, up here, this, there. But you don't have to put the year in. And again, as we age, that's part of how you can, at least to some extent, not really tip your hand how old you are, is by not populating this field. Just click on year. So that's a quick thought. But put things in there if there was something of significance you did, like I got this award because I did a lot of service work when I was at the University of Wisconsin. So it could be anywhere, just a year at the community college, that's fine. Now, some of you, I'm thinking Sean maybe come to mind, maybe who else would be in here? Maybe Jerry, supply chain, Christine, maybe. You might have different certifications. So you want to make sure and add those. If you've never added a certification, I'm going to pop back up to here at profile section. They are here, here under licenses and certifications and courses. Say you took some professional development courses, you never got a certification, but you knew somebody else was mentioning that. A couple of people did. So put that course in that you took that course, because again, that's a little bit of SEO. It shows you're a continuing learner. Oh, and here's something I should mention. I'll go and say it again. If you've never had a recommendation ever, got to start somewhere. You go here to click on add recommendation. And so then let's say I'm going to ask Don to recommend me because Don and I are connected, because you have to be connected with them. So there's Don, and then I would go here and I'd select, I'll just go ahead and ask you, like, why not? So what is my relationship to Don? Well, he's kind of a client. He's kind of a client of mine because here he's getting all this valuable information, right? So, and what was my position? Oh, social media professional, speaker, and presenter. Let's just say that one. And then I'd write a note if I wasn't sitting here, right? There he is. Oh, there he is. Write me a nice one, Don. Then in real life, I would send him an email, say, hey, Don, especially if you kind of think he might not be on LinkedIn much. Hey, Don, I've sent you over a LinkedIn recommendation request. It will be in your messaging. You will see it there, and there'll be a hyperlink. Click on the hyperlink and fill out the box. In fact, you already told this to me before, and here's some information if you want to use it to get started. But that's the approach I would take. And if it comes over and there's a mistake, because it happens, you can click on ask for a revision, and then you can email it again. Yeah, you had a question on that, Jerry?
Yeah. how effective are recommendations these days? I mean, if you look at my profile, I have a bunch from 2009 and 2010 when it first came out. It carried a lot of credibility. But then, 3 years ago when I was looking for it, there was a lot of sense that it was more like, I'll write you a recommendation, you write me a recommendation. And so it was sort of devalued. So I didn't really go solicit recommendations at that point. Is this pendulum swung back the other way, or is it?
Well, Mark
what's the
is
rest of the
very
group
plugged
think?
into this stuff, so I would also defer to him. But I think they're important personally. I really do. I think that Mark, that you're not Mark, you're Jerry, that they're more important than even like endorsements. So, but you're right, that there was a time, oh, you recommend me, I'll recommend you, and it does devalue it. But I think especially if their recommendation has keywords in it, and it really helps to validate you. I really do think they're important. Anybody else have thoughts about it? Current ones. Yeah.
Joyce, if this
Yeah.
is Mark Lauterbach,
Yeah,
because
go
I do
ahead.
job search coaching. Yeah, they're critical, but you need to have specificity.
Yes.
And what I mean is
Yes.
specificity around what you do, Jerry. So if you look at Tom Mandel's recommendation, one of his guys said, Tom's a lean transformation expert. This will give you the context. And one of the guys that worked for him said, I worked for Tom first as a consultant, and then I followed him to his next company where I got to be director of, I was his director of supply chain. And I watched Tom lead us through a lean transformation and operations. We reduced inventory by 2/3. We took delivery and quality near perfect. Now, what Tom did in his interview, because I coached him to do this, he talked about that transformation. He goes, as a matter of fact, Tom Smith there's a recommendation. If you give me control of the screen, because he's remote interviewing, he goes, I'd be happy to show that to you. That was a mic drop moment because that reinforced his skill set. Too many of them are generic. Jerry was a great guy to work for. Get 2 or 3 specific to what the value is you bring, and it's amazing. So that's what you do. And it's incredible because it's third-party validation. If everyone's read, if you read Robert Cialdini's book on ethical influence, that putting it in writing, right, and being a reference is really powerful, but specificity. If one of those people have written you a recommendation, unfortunately, you'll have to delete it and have them rewrite it, right, because they can't change it with LinkedIn today. But everyone specificity, to what you're looking for. And if you're pivoting, have someone talk about you have that skills. But Joyce is right. It's critical because then you can mic drop and smile.
And you know what? If somebody asked you to write a recommendation and you weren't comfortable, I had that happen to me just this week. She was somebody I comped a 30-minute session to, and the whole session, she was, I should say, just say no. Is where I should have finished that. My Toastmasters catch me on that here. So the point is, if you weren't comfortable writing one for them, just don't. And it shouldn't be a trading thing, I don't think. It should be genuine, like, it can be on occasion. But I think, and usually somebody you really admire, you write about them. She had this phenomenal 30 minutes with me. We just were clicking just over and over. So I don't ask everybody, certainly, who does that for a recommendation, but I thought she was really somebody, but she asked me, could I recommend her? And I'd only spent 30 minutes with her. How do I know if she's a good life coach? I have no idea. So I just said, better have some people that know you better. So it sounds a little heartless, but I just don't think you should do that for everybody.
And Joyce, if I could just add, when you send the request for the recommendation, you tell them what you want them to say. Hey, remember when we did this?
Right. Give examples. Yeah. Set them up for that.
And some people say, hey, just write it for me.
I think that's a little cheeky, personally. I agree with you.
Well, no, but some will do it. You're like, okay, but you know what you want. But some people say, I agree with you, but you know more what you want. But if you give them that context, 90% of the time they'll write it, but 10% will say, hey, you write it. And and it's true. So that, I think it is cheeky, but it happens. But most of the time when you give guidance, you get what you want. And like Joyce said, you can ask them for revision if it doesn't look great. And check spelling and grammar, because there's no spell check in LinkedIn. Make sure it's perfect, because you put a recommendation.
Okay, I'm going to move into, I'm going to move into volunteering. Volunteering, I think, is very important. It shows you have a heart, that you give back to your community, that you have generosity of spirit. And if it's something you're really big on and it ties into the direction you're going, add it up here, like I've said. See how I have this here? I have this here. This was a very big deal. This helped set me up for success with my business. When I was still working the day job, I did that social media work for my Toastmasters. See, when I was doing this work here. So then go down here. And what's interesting about volunteering is you can take something that's over and put it at the top. You can't do that in work experience, but in volunteer experience, you can. So I spent 7 years with this organization. I did a lot of volunteering within it, and it's well regarded in the Denver metro area. So that's why I put it at the top. Down here, you see Toastmasters International, where I've been a member 25 years, half my married life, curious year we're in here. So I'm not going to overwhelm my LinkedIn with all the stuff I did for them. No, I just consolidated it into one position. But this is, I think was alluded to before, like Christine and Kathy, they're in Toastmasters. So maybe others. So people, Toastmasters love other Toastmasters. You could have been in it 20 years ago and you still had this bond with each other, like Rotary or something. So I say it's important. And that, again, though, it is year specific. So you're like, okay, if you have an issue with saying you did something in 97, then, you can always change the years, I guess. So I want to go down and just move on here just because we don't want to go way over time. Hang on a second. Okay, now skills. Yeah, any quick questions?
You finish by like 10:45, that'd be fine.
That'd be good. Thank you for giving me I need a time. Skills are so important. And skills are, when you go into the plus, see, it's going to make suggestions for you for what you're good at. Like, here's an interesting one, social media communications. I've not seen that before. And if I'm not maxed out at 50, I can add that. And this is actually a very interesting, I got to really do a whole thought on this. Any item where this skill applies, do you know if anybody else knows how this pays out? Well, this would apply to, let's just say these three, maybe more. So this is, pretty long. Ugh. So I'm just going to go there. You have a question on that, Kathy, because this is new. Okay, now your skills been added. Show recruiters you're full of raised skills and get a better job matches. No thanks. Kathy, you have a question?
Not specifically on this, so just a couple general ones. Or
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If you have the in the work experience, the titles, should it be descriptive of what you do, or should it include titles like, vice president or something?
Well, I think if vice president, you should put your actual title, I think, and then use the separator and then be descriptive after that.
Okay.
Do both, I think.
And on the certifications, if you earn something, it's a series 7 and, like for stock, whatever, it's not current. Should you only have the current certifications?
I lean toward current certifications.
Okay. And then what year should you omit your work experience?
Well, this is not my true area of expertise, but probably you could stretch it out to 15 years, 10 to anything over 15 years, probably. There's a lot of it depends.
Thank you.
Okay, and Hari, am I saying your name right?
You are, and
okay.
My apologies again for totally butchering.
It's okay, I should have coached you better. Okay, so.
And I should know better because people butcher my name all the time. I did have a question actually about the feature that you just showed. I was wondering if you knew that if you had already listed your skills, would you need to relist them in order to be able to get that check mark and associate them with the
Oh, well, look at all this. I think that's too much for me. I'm sorry, what was your question?
That's it. That's actually really related to that. So I had never seen that feature either, and I was just wondering.
It's brand new.
Okay, I was wondering, do you know if I had to re-add all of them again in order to be able to check which positions they would apply to?
God, I think you might have to. Really, you kind of caught me here a little flat-footed because I'm just going to delete this one because I can't deal.
Adding a lot of stuff, right?
It looks too visually complex. Yeah. I kind of have,
right.
Unless it only applied to certain ones. Already you got, any rate, but you can, what I want to especially stress this, you can reorder in case you don't know. So otherwise, if you don't reorder, your skills are listed by number of endorsements, okay? So especially those pivoting people, you're going to want to move some of the other ones. And it'll look a little funky in a way with fewer endorsements or none even, but I'd really like to see those in your top 3 skills. So the ones that display, when people come into your skills section. Does that make sense? So, yeah, so I just want to just show you that as much as anything and then move on. Oh, look at this. I have a pending recommendation. Maybe it's even, who knows? It could be, where is this pending? Oh, that's the one she wanted me to do. I just have to knock that out. Ooh, it's painful. But I just can't recommend her because I just don't know her well enough. Okay. So that's gone. So pending could be somebody recommending you or somebody asking you to. Now, if that recommendation was from years ago, which often it is, you just delete it. Like, I don't even remember her, But so there's recommendations. And then I want to very quickly go through this so we can talk about connections a tiny bit. So publications, if you have anything where you've been published, it could be an article in a company newsletter, somebody else's blog, wherever. So, and then I'll show you where to add that. Here's where the courses display. Projects, especially let's say someone like Anne did, she was involved in this major CRM project, right, with a nonprofit, and they're okay with her talking about it. So she not only could reference it in the experience section, but she could bring it up here and she could list, see when you add a project, you can add what are called co-creators. So presumably she'd be on LinkedIn with these people, so she could add them as the folks involved with this project. And they would be notified she added them. She doesn't need their blessing. Very interesting. So be careful. But then then LinkedIn says, hey, you want to add this project to your LinkedIn profile? They go, well, geez, should have thought of that myself. So, so anyway, projects are good for some of those catch-all things that are very short term. They don't fit anywhere else. Honors and awards, that does have nothing to do. Eagle Scout, any of you gentlemen an Eagle Scout? If you are, tell the world that Don's going, no, I didn't go that far. But that's the kind of thing I'm thinking of. Organizations, even if you don't belong, but it does show the year. I mean, say you were in Rotary in the 2000s, you could put that in, depending. So these are just different things on how you add all those guys. Is here at the top again, under additional. And additional, if you haven't added volunteer yet, that's where volunteer can be populated. Publications, projects, honors and awards. I'm just going through ones that would more likely apply. Languages, if you speak another language, organizations, and causes too. Are there any questions on any of this?
Yeah.
I have a question. So in the tech field, you get all these certifications. Where's a good place to put that?
Certifications you have, Anne?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you put them is under licenses and certifications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yep. Okay, so I want to go into a little bit on connecting with people. So just a section. I just wanted to pick on Sean because he seems sweet and it lets me pick. So Sean has got a fabulous picture and a kind of interesting background. It's okay, it's like might just be a conversation starter. But Sean, my friend, please say your tell us about you.
Say anything.
Yeah, you would tell me IT support, computer engineering. Are you from New York State? I bet, huh?
Formally, yes. Yep.
Yeah, my husband's from there, so already I like you, right? So, and here, see, you want to really work on your skills. I mean, this is not here to pick on you. I just mainly went in here to connect with you. So I just would connect. Normally I'd add a note, but in the interest of time, I'll send that off. But then Anne, actually, I was a little concerned, Anne. See, we'll work on this in the 30 minutes because see, I don't see your picture. There's a problem.
There's a reason that I didn't put my LinkedIn profile in the sign-in sheet. I know it's just not ready.
But I'm second level with you, so I don't see your photo. This is a problem. Do you see that? Would you agree?
Yes, I know my profile needs a lot of work.
Yeah, right. So you're so sweet. But the key thing is to have your picture be available to everybody. So just as, I'm not really trying to do this to be mean. I'm just making quick, these are just common things that come up. So now I've asked these people to connect. Do I have any people? Okay, there's Jerry. Oh, he's this poster child over here. But he writes this nice note. So I reply to him and I'll do that and then I'll accept it. So say though, I he wasn't here and he was just some random person that wanted to connect with me. How long we can keep doing this, I don't know. LinkedIn is changing this whole deal. But I can go here, maybe, we'll find out in a minute. And then I can see, here he is. Can I do anything with this? Choose and connect, choose what now? That's all the settings. So it looks like I've just lost that ability to do a cool thing I really always like to do, which is kind of vet them out ahead of time. But since that's gone, one thing you could do is just accept the person if they look kind of like worth connecting with, and ask them, hey, say thank you, thanks Jerry for, and you can respond here, or if there's no message, you just accept this. And then you write, thanks for the invite. What prompted you to reach out to me? You know, what prompted you? So if they don't write back, or if they write something weird, then just remove them. And removing is super easy. You go over, yeah, maybe don't do it the same day, you know, but say I want to remove Robel, then I would just go down here and remove this guy. See, like that? And they're not notified that you went and did that, because heck, you didn't even go look at their profile. So you do want to be thinking about who you're connected to. That's really important. So I'm trying to think of one other thing I wanted to show you about engaging with others. So here is Hari. So I want to go to her, and the thing I wanted to do with Hari is go down to her activity. Now here's something you can do when you, maybe with somebody at a company where you want to work, and you guys are kind of friendly, at least. I mean, you're not a total stranger. You can periodically go over to their activity, to their post, or things they like, you know, things they've liked or commented on, and you could comment. You could comment. So here is a post from Hari. So I could, you know, I'd read through this. I talk about, you know, I'm not going to do it right now because I want it to be meaningful. But if I comment, have a point of view, just like Mark said, when you have a recommendation, make sure it's specific. So don't just say, oh, great idea or something, you know, make sure that you say something of interest, you know, because you're in this flow here with these people. And also really, probably you know all this, notifications, keep on top of these, because you want to see, like this example, this Lorna, just love this picture of me and my minister. And look at this just gorgeous thing she said to me. I love you say that, honor people we admire. We shouldn't forget about humanity, compassion, and kindness. I admire you. I mean, this is a love note, just comes in this unexpectedly through this comment. Oh, it just touches my heart. So you just never know the impact you're making in the world. You really never know. And LinkedIn is a great way to make an impact and be a subject matter expert and all of that. So we have a few minutes left for questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Carol.
I cannot get my LinkedIn to be, so it says that I'm available on mobile.
Oh,
Does anyone remember how to do that?
are you talking about, you're talking about the job part over here?
Well, when it gives a little
What do you
green
mean
circle
mobile?
near your picture,
Yeah.
okay, if you're available on mobile.
Oh, that's a really specific privacy thing.
I know.
And I can't remember, is maybe because sometimes they'll change that stuff. So I think it has to do with visibility. There's one where it's about, okay, manage your active status. I don't think, because see, this is if, say you don't want people to know, and I don't think it's mobile specific, Carol, I'm not sure, but this can see I'm on LinkedIn, whether I'm on LinkedIn, on my app, on my phone, whether I'm on it on the computer. So that way I think, oh, Joyce has got her LinkedIn open. Maybe I'll quick message her, you know, send her a message. She might be able to see it right now. Because I think that's what you're talking about. Is that correct, Carol?
Maybe, but you know, I don't know. I was looking one time and I got into a section that said that I could see what recruiters see and a couple other things, but I never got it to show up for my mobile.
Well, I think you and I should look at that together. So even though we've already had a session from another time I spoke, you and I sign up for another one, okay?
Okay.
Maybe we can, hope we can troubleshoot that.
Because I've looked all over for it on the internet. Usually it'll pop up and it'll tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Right.
Getting it.
No, I can't promise.
Oh,
I
no
can-
worries, no
yeah.
worries.
But we could try. Yeah, we could try.
Okay,
Other
thank you.
questions? Yeah, any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. I feel like I tend to add features when they're new to LinkedIn, but then I don't revisit it. Hence why like my skills were so just barren. I guess my question would be like, at a minimum, how often should you keep going through your LinkedIn profile, checking for new features and just refreshing? Like how
I
often
would
would you do
say
it?
maybe quarterly, maybe monthly as a job seeker, maybe monthly. So I think, yeah, because you just never know. Things all of a sudden will pop up like that thing with the skills. I think it's been around for a while, but I hadn't really been paying much attention to it. So now it's like a bad thing to learn something in front of a group of people. Ooh. But yeah, I would say probably at least about monthly now. But then once you're more settled into a job, maybe quarterly. It's more kind of as needed too. Like say you get on a board of something and you'd put it in there under under volunteering. So, when something changes in your life, then that's a good time. One other very unrelated thing is whenever you leave a job, make sure before you leave, you change your LinkedIn email to your home email. I can't tell you the number of times people want to connect they can't access that old account, and sometimes LinkedIn will help you with the ID verification procedure, but sometimes not. So here you have all those connections, all that stuff, you've lost them. You could potentially lose it. So you want to always have that LinkedIn be, before you leave, make sure it's your home email. Yeah, Jerry.
I never use my work emails in LinkedIn. I'll keep the references to the company simply because, when I left my last job, literally my company email was turned off an hour after I walked out the door. So you wouldn't have been able to do anything.
Because I'm the same with you, Jerry. I just didn't want those people spying on me anyway. I always use my home email.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Anything else?
There is a
Joyce?
website that provides a database of header images.
Oh, well, yeah, they give you a few here on LinkedIn. Let me just go back here. I think I would go to like deposit photos. You can get 10 images. Other people may know, maybe Canva, but I'm not sure that's the best place to suggest. But
Yeah, I have a few suggestions too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're the design lady too.
Yeah, I guess that kind of depends, but if you want something neutral that's like a beautiful landscape or something like that, this is a good source for free images, for
So
example.
yeah, just put that in the chat. Yeah. Any other quick questions here?
Joyce, Don, I'm excited for the attendees today because I don't know if it's been said enough. LinkedIn, I think, is so important for a job search. I can imagine that pretty much every employer or hiring manager would check, applicant's LinkedIn profile before proceeding. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. And, one final thing, I wasn't going to get into this, but I'm going to do this really quick because we've talked about it so much at the beginning. Let's say someone like Sean here, I just was looking at my time, didn't you use the word computer engineer? Did I hear you say that,
Yes.
Sean? Okay. So he wants to do informational interviewing with computer engineers, right? Watch this. So I put quote the Boolean search, or you can do different searches like Mark said, put a quote before and after, quotation mark before and after the phrase. Now we're going to look for people who are computer engineers. This is not really my bailiwick. So I might have, let's just say I'm looking for second level people. And I'm looking for second level people, and let's get pretty granular here. And I want them in Boulder. That gets pretty granular. I might just do Denver Metro if I don't get enough out of Boulder. Well, I still have 5 people. But just look at these 5 people. So here's this guy. And then who is my shared connection? Like Allison Prophet, I'm pretty tight with her. So I could say, hey, how do you know Blake? Because he has somewhere in his profile, he has software engineer. Here's, now Peter Heyer doesn't really ring a bell, but then I have a lot of connections. So Wendy Bowling, I knew her from the West Metro, the Women's Chamber. So see, the point is you can ask these people here, one or more of them, to connect you with, she's a person that can connect me potentially with whichever guy that was I was just looking at. So I went kind of fast, but that makes sense, Sean? So just how we got there was we typed in computer engineer, see all results. Then we went into a people search and then we narrowed it. So here's another way to do it. If you want to work as a computer engineer at, let's just say Lockheed Martin. So you go to the company and then you go here, and I have that kind of makes sense. Why would I know people in Lockheed? But that's kind of the process. I did want to briefly mention that.
Yeah, but if you do second level, right, then it'll show you who your first levels are.
Yes, it always does. Correct, Trent.
Yeah.
It always does. Yes. Mm-hmm. So Los Angeles Chargers, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so just kind of, I would go into LinkedIn at least once or twice a week. And a little bit of time on LinkedIn goes a long ways. So don't ignore it. And like I say, I probably keep drumming this. I do sometime, these 2 weeks in May are really busy, but starting the week of the 16th, it opens up. And I've got time from 8 to 5 on my link. But if for some reason you need weeknights or Saturday afternoons, I could also help you that. Because I'm more than happy to do that. I helped, in 2020, I helped 80 people for free. And last year I helped 76. And that's because I feel that it's the right thing to do, is to be of service to humankind. And this is my jam. So I want to help other people get better at it too. Not that I know everything, but I really enjoy LinkedIn far more than any of the other social media sites.
Well, Joyce, you're very good at it, and you updating my LinkedIn profile has definitely helped. And I
Thank you,
also learned something from Mark. I put a post out there, and that does help give you some visibility. So
it gives some energy to your profile. It just lifts it up. Posting, get brave and post.
Yeah, and if you see someone out there that has post, then say something on it, because it helps them get, some, and it helps you too.
Yeah, it helps both of you. Correct. Yeah. Right. It puts you into that stream of people. LinkedIn is all about the power of weak ties. That was talked about earlier, your kid's soccer coach or whatever it was that you were saying, Trent, somebody. And that's where it's amazing how you can find somebody who's connected to somebody, and that's where you get the next job. Yeah. This was really good. So I'm pretty much wrapped up then. And
oh, thank you, Joyce. This was wonderful. So appreciate your generosity and your help. And I'm sure that many of us will be very happy to take advantage of your generous offer to give us a consultation. Do we have any other questions or comments for Joyce before we wrap up our presentation?